Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, November 5th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -4 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The city reveals today when commuters can expect to ride the rails again. They'll also expected to be responding to the report by the Transportation Safety Board. That concluded improper maintenance was to blame for the September derailment of the LRT. Here's City News reporter Chris Curry.
The TSB drops the hammer on Rideau Transit Group in Alstom, essentially telling them they don't do their jobs well. After the first derailment in August, 9 trains were taken out of service, repaired and released, only to have a safety-critical component fail within the first 800 kilometers of travel time, or only 5 days, leading to the second derailment directly. They call it incomplete and inconsistent maintenance, specifically citing how bolts were improperly torqued, but also how work is often performed out of sequence and left undocumented, which can lead to items getting missed, like the torquing of bolts. The TSB says an in-depth review is needed and wants to know what OC Transpo will do about it. The city and its independent safety consultant are scheduled to hold a technical briefing this morning, which will include the LRT return to service program. The Confederation line has been out of service for 48 days. Chris Curry's City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Overall, pretty good conditions, sun and cloud, the high near 8 degrees, above average, -1 for the low, and then tomorrow milder up to 11 degrees with plenty of sunshine. Sunday also features a fair amount of sunshine and the high near 12. For today, the high 8.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's -4 degrees. StatsCan says the economy did add 31,000 jobs in October, but that was a little less than had been anticipated. The unemployment rate, 6.7%, and that is a drop from the month before. In September, it was 6.9. America's employers stepped up with their hiring in November, make that October as well, adding a solid 531,000 jobs. Pfizer is joining the race to bring an easy-to-use COVID-19 medication to the United States market.
The drug maker says its experimental antiviral pill cuts rates of hospitalization and death by nearly 90%. Pfizer plans to ask the Food and Drug Administration and international regulators to authorize it as soon as possible. After Pfizer applies, the FDA could make a decision within weeks or months. The FDA already is reviewing Merck's COVID-19 pill. On Thursday, the United Kingdom became the first country to okay it. Currently, all COVID-19 treatments used in the U.S. require an IV or injection. Mike Hemp in Washington.
City News time 9:03. An early morning fire in Constance Bay injured a firefighter, a resident of the house, and 3 small dogs. People in the home called the fire service to say flames had spread from a fireplace to the wall and were threatening the attic as well. Firefighters arrived on Bayview Drive about 4 o'clock this morning. They were told a person was still up on the second floor. That person was found, brought out, and treated for minor injuries, as was one firefighter. Now, 3 small dogs in the home needed oxygen and first aid as well. The fire did spread to the attic. A ladder truck had to be called in to assist in that firefight. A fire investigator has been called in to determine the cause. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. A long week, but we made it. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. What a show, what a show, what a show we have for you to wrap up the week. I read this morning, it's a 10-page memo from the Transportation Safety Board about what may have caused this latest derailment of our light rail system. And you can be forgiven, everyone, you can be forgiven if you have forgotten that we even have light rail in Ottawa. After all, it has not been seen carrying a passenger for 47 days. But why is that? I'm telling you, I thought the last memo from the Transportation Safety Board was bad. This one is even worse, if that's even possible. The details in here, they are shocking. They are shocking. The incompetence, I'm just going to call it neglect. As I was reading this report, I just find it hard to fathom. I found it hard to fathom that this level of service is what taxpayers are getting for more than $2 billion and for more than $5 million a month in maintenance fees. $5 million a month. It's astonishing stuff. The latest problem, splined axle stubs added to the list. Okay, I don't know what these are. I've never heard of them before this morning, but they're apparently quite important. Splined axle stubs. Because when they fail, because of loose bolts, the train can come off the tracks and travel 1,400 feet over a rail bridge, spanning, as I have pointed out before, one of the busiest roadways in the city, Riverside Drive. Some of the details, before this memo was released yesterday, some of the details were in the media before. Like the idea that there was a shift change. Okay? But I gather from reading this report that one of the jobs that was supposed to be done that day was to tighten all the bolts that secure these things called splined axle stubs, and the disc brake rotors, and the wheels, all of which I assume are key components of any vehicle, let alone a $2 billion brand new state-of-the-art light rail vehicle. But anyway, the employees down there at the yard, they're supposed to use some kind of fancy torque gun that tightens all of these bolts. So the axles and the brake rotors and the wheels, so they don't fall off the train. But that never happened because because one shift didn't tell the next shift that it was supposed to be done. Don't they sound like they're right on top of things down there? They're right on top of things down there at the Belfast yard. Oh, yes, they're right on top of it. Heck of a job, Brownie. You're doing a heck of a job. 1,400 feet. Can you imagine? 1,400 feet. The train had already derailed. Okay? It's off the tracks. The wheels are off the tracks. Yet somehow it manages to stop at a station. One assumes some people got on, maybe some people got off. And then it pulls out of the station, derailed. Still derailed, quote, derailed and not detected nor noticed by the operator. Nobody noticed? Not detected nor noticed by the operator. The thing is off the tracks. How do you not notice that? Now, look, this may have happened to you recently because it happened to me just the other day. And it happens to me every year because I have snow tires on my vehicle on winter rims. Okay? And they were just installed a few days ago. And folks, this probably happens to you every winter. You swap out the tires. What happens the first day you drive it? The pressure sensor for the tires comes on the dash because the vehicle's computer senses, hey, these are different kind of tires. What's going on? Ding, ding, ding. The light comes on the dash, right? It does that. On my Dodge, it does that. Eventually, it turns itself off. But my point is, the light comes on. It's a warning light on a 6-year-old vehicle. Right? How is it that a brand new 2-year-old train, $2 billion worth of rail infrastructure, goes 1,400 feet, takes out a switch heater, takes out a signal mask, and nobody on the train in charge has the foggiest idea what's going on. Yet somehow the people down there at City Hall, who just presented to the taxpayers a city budget that includes a nearly $400 million transit budget, they are under the assumption that transit ridership is going to soar back to 82% sometime next year, like double what it is now. I don't know why they would ever think that. I think anybody who reads this report will not be clamoring to climb back into these trains. Trains that don't even warn the operator that the darn thing is off the tracks, for crying out loud. Unbelievable report. You should read it. Thanks to Councillor Leeper, put it on his website. We're going to get into this issue ahead of this briefing this morning, the technical briefing this morning. Councillor and Transit Commissioner Catherine McKenney back on the Rob Snow Show this morning. Also on the program, it was a huge week at the Ontario Legislature. Fall economic statement yesterday, the so-called mini budget, very much a re-election document from Premier Ford. Also this week, news about the minimum wage going up to $15 an hour. News about vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, not needed. Hospitals can impose them, but it's not going to be a province-wide policy. That was a hot topic yesterday. Phone lines on fire here at the Rob Snow Show. We're going to cover all of that, maybe a few more things, too. We'll be joined by our panel of MPPs. We'll do Queen's Park Week in review. All our Friday fare is on the way. Hall of Fame broadcaster, best-selling author Lowell Green is back with us this morning. He's been on the mend. He's been on injured reserve, but he's back up and around now, so he's going to join us at least for a few minutes this morning. Derick Fage as well, host of Daytime Ottawa, Rogers Television. Author and columnist Randall Denley covers the Ford government for the National Post. The latest column is about the mini budget. Yesterday, not bad, Randall says, not bad, but can Ford sell it to voters? That's going to be the big question. Randall will be here at 9:45. Steve Warne on sports. Sens, all looking good. Struggling. And Green Bay without their star quarterback because Aaron Rodgers lied about being vaccinated. And the Packers have a big game this weekend against Kansas City. And you're in the middle of it all. During our talkback hour, an hour of opinions, an hour of phone calls, the hottest hour of talk radio in town. Just ask around. And today it's the Friday free-for-all. So we're open to talking about just about anything, just about. You want to talk about Ford or Trudeau or O'Toole or Watson? Let's have at it. More than 6 weeks of this. This is what passes for public transit in Ottawa. Loose bolts because of shift changes. This is what you get for $5 million a month. Feel free to tee off on that one. Hey, trip over an e-scooter lately? Sell a kidney for a tank of gas? Why do I have to be fully vaccinated in order to be allowed to go play bingo, but not to work in a hospital emergency room, according to Doug Ford? Whatever it is, let's roll because it's Friday on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box as well as the Marketmobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years and Marketmobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
He is living proof. And a proof is a proof is a proof. And when you have a proof, it's because it's proven. He's proof that you can't keep a good man down. Welcoming back Lowell Green.
Survivor of the Dome.
The Dome, yes.
You haven't lived till you've spent a night or two in the Dome.
What's the Dome? Explain the Dome. Let's get into this.
The Dome is that new parking, that building that they erected in the parking lot at the Civic. It's like getting a health treatment in a Walco, or a Costco. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I'm here. I'm feeling not too bad.
Good.
I'm getting
you sound
around
good.
with a
You sound
walker,
good.
and hopefully. The only thing I'm worried about, my wife insists that I have physio, and we have a lovely little woman who's helped me before with my knees. I call her the little torturer. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you scream. I say, stop, this is killing me. Go ahead, Mr. Green, we've got to bend this joint. Oh my, so she's coming Sunday. Oh, well, I'm really looking forward to that.
I can tell. But listen, just before we get into it here, generally speaking, how was the care at the Civic? What were
once you get in, the staff is very accommodating, very professional. At least that's what I found. And to be honest with you, I didn't really find that there was that much short staffing. I found that there were plenty of staff. I found some people wandering around doing things that I didn't think were necessary. And the nurses are compelled, not their fault, compelled to spend an inordinate amount of time at the computers. Everything has now got to be detailed and documented on the bloody computer. The problem at the Civic is getting into a bed. I was 3.5 days lying in a stretcher because they couldn't find a bed or a room for me.
Oh my God!
And when they finally did find a room, and I mean I had some great experiences, which I want, but I was in 6 different rooms. So when they finally did get a room for me, they send me up to ortho, whatever the hell it is, and I'm nicely settled in. And the nurse comes in, and she knows me. She's almost crying. She says, "Mr. Green, we're going to have to move you again." I said, "Why?" She says, "Well, we think the man in the other bed there has COVID, so we're going to have to get you out of here." Anyway, listen, I have to ask you a question.
Okay, all right.
I saw an advertisement last night seen it a couple of times, that you can now buy a truck that is so intelligent it can read speed signs at the side of the road.
Oh, really?
In other words, you're whipping along the road, and the speed sign says 50 kilometers.
Right.
The truck will read that and signal you that it's 50 kilometers.
Oh, yes. We had a rental car this summer that did that. Honda Civic rental car did that.
So we've got trucks and cars that can now read road signs, but we have trains that cannot signal that they have a serious derailment. Is that what you're telling
Yeah, the wheels
me?
are off the track. Yeah, they don't even tell the operator that the wheels are off the track. Yeah. Something,
Oh, my God.
Isn't that something?
It sure gives you a lot of confidence in the system.
Yes.
I have another question.
I'm so glad it'll be free in December. I can't wait to get on it,
Yeah, right. Now, one of the things, and I mean, we've been on LRT so much, but every time I drive into the city, I see them. They're building the final western station at Moody Drive.
Yeah.
Which really begs the question: why the hell Moody Drive? I mean, Canada is just another kilometer or so. That's where we need the train.
Well, that'll be phase 3. Yeah, that'll be phase 3. That'll be phase 3 to get it out to
But
Terry
I mean,
Fox.
why stop at Moody? Why
they're not stopped. The plan is not to stop. They're supposed to get it out for phase 3 out to Terry Fox.
I understand that, but I mean, why? I don't understand why, whatever phase it is, why Moody? There's nothing there. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
That they wouldn't have extended stage 2 or whatever it is, at least into the edge of Canada.
Well,
however,
they need some money to get that done. So far, it's supposed to be split 3 ways, that one, right? But so far, Ford is kind of, I don't know.
Well, he's saying, hey, prove to us that this thing won't be derailed every other time we turn around. I don't blame him at all.
Well, I mean, as the Sun points out in its coverage this morning, the Citizen as well, the Post-Media papers, I mean, this train was refurbished just 5 days before it went off the tracks again.
Oh, boy. Listen,
I mean, a few loose bolts, and look what, a few loose bolts, and look what happens. It's down for 47 days. 47 days.
I think there's a lot of loose bolts elsewhere. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
I have another question for you.
Okay.
Now, I expect common sense from you, okay?
All right.
I expect rational answers to rational questions.
I'll try not to disappoint.
My rational question is this.
Yeah.
What in the hell were 277 people doing at the Global Climate Conference? Canada.
They were delegates. Delegates.
277. The United States, with 10 times our population, sent 133. We sent more than twice as many people to the conference as the United States of America. What the hell would 277 people do over there? I mean, you know what? This guy, Trudeau, this government is nuts. I'm sorry to be so graphic.
Right.
I'm sorry to be so rude, but they are nuts.
They're nuts.
Look, we're almost $1.5 trillion in debt.
Yes.
I went out yesterday, or my wife went out yesterday to try to buy a little bit of steak. $28 per pound for a tenderloin steak.
Yeah.
The cost of everything, including food and gasoline, skyrocketing. The interest rate's soon going to go up, and we're going to spend millions of dollars sending a whole damn army off to the global climate. You know who else went? Now, it seems to me that Climate Barbie, sorry to be...
No, don't say that. Don't use that term.
Well, I know, okay, but there's Catherine McKenna.
Catherine McKenna, yeah.
She is no longer an MP. She decided not to run again. But we paid for her bloody trip over to, I guess, Rome and then on to Glasgow. Mm-hmm. Why would we do that? What 207? But this is indicative of a much more serious problem. This government has no idea what a dollar is. Mm-hmm. You know, Trudeau has said, well, he spends no time worrying about monetary policy. To send 277 people to a useless conference, this would cost us millions of dollars. Can you imagine? You got to have hotel rooms for 207. We would pay for all of their meals. Yeah. How many jets would this be? So they're jetting off all of these elites, jetting off to Glasgow or wherever the hell they're jetting off to tell us to turn the thermostat down a degree.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's funny you mentioned that. I calculated this morning because there are online calculate your carbon footprint. right?
Yeah.
So I calculated, because Mr. Trudeau flew from Ottawa to Rome, right? Then Rome to Glasgow, and then Glasgow back to Ottawa. And it said 4,000 pounds of carbon. And then I thought, well, how does that translate into how much a typical Canadian would use? Okay, that's 6 months worth of carbon emissions for the average Canadian household.
But that's
6 months worth. Just him. Yeah, just him.
277 people that went there.
Yeah.
How many jets would that be?
Yeah.
And did those 277 go to Rome first and then on to Glasgow? I don't know. And we're trying to find out. I've been trying to find out what they shut right down. They won't tell us. They won't tell us how many jets were involved. Won't give us an estimate of the cost, et cetera, et cetera. It's crazy. Now there's something else.
And just if I could just pick up that point, because Biden is no better. Biden goes over there and he, says he's going to be the climate warrior and he's going to champion the fight against climate change and everything else. And then the very next day, he's slamming OPEC for not pumping enough oil and accusing OPEC of hurting the working class of the United States because gas prices are so high. Meantime, one of the first orders of business when he took over in the White House was to do what? Cancel the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have given them 800,000 barrels a day of oil from their friendliest neighbor at a discount.
You see, what's happened? This whole green energy thing essentially has become a religion. And I'm going to tell you something. Right now, it's an outmoded religion. This idea that somehow or other we can tax ourselves into a cooler planet is absolute nonsense. I urge, if you haven't, I urge your listeners, or your millions of listeners, to Google two different sites.
All right.
Google Iceland CO2 and Google MIT CO2. You will be astonished at what is happening. There are plants being erected in many places around the world that suck CO2 from the air, convert it either into a fuel which has no emissions, or more likely into stone. A lot of people don't know. If you suck CO2, which we've been able to do for a long time, and store it underground, it turns into inert stone. Now, there's at least 15 of these plants underway. There's the huge one in Iceland. One company says that it plans to build a plant to suck 1 million tons of CO2 out of the air. They say that is equal to 14 million trees. What the CO2 that would be extracted by 14 million.
Interesting. Yep.
This is the answer. Science is the answer. I write about this in the book that you also have a chapter in. Yeah. I have a whole chapter about what they're doing at MIT. At MIT, they suck CO2 out of the air. They have now managed to convert it into a fuel to be burned in jet planes that has no emissions. Now, the problem that we have now is that it's expensive to do. But we all know that the more we work on these things, the more we turn science loose, the lower the cost. So, sure, encourage people to cut down on them, absolutely. But carbon taxes. Name me one area, one jurisdiction where carbon taxes have lowered emissions. You cannot do that because it doesn't work. But turn science loose. This country, if we really cared, and we're really in the avant-garde and really in the 21st century, we would pioneer a giant plant to suck CO2 out of the air, convert it into usable fuel or into stone. Science is the answer, not tax. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Google Iceland. See what a little country of Iceland is going to build this huge plant. You know what Iceland will do? They're going to suck all of the CO2 that the entire nation produces. They're going to suck it out of the air and store it as stone. So Google Iceland CO2 and then Google MIT CO2. You will be astonished at what's going on.
All right.
And yet, when you listen to these so-called environmentalists, the politicians from around the world, they don't seem aware of the science that's underway on this. I just don't understand that.
All right, we got to go. The news is coming up. I'm so glad you're on the mend. You're up. You're back around.
CO2, folks.
Good luck with your torture session on the weekend. Hope you get through that. Okay.
Oh God, I'm already looking forward.
Got to run. Talk to you next week.
Yep. Arrives. Good morning.
All right. Bye. Yep. Lowell Green. the news. Coming up, City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, November 5th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -1 degree. And here's what's making news this hour. A return to LRT service update. That's expected from the city today. And it follows the TSB report into the cause of the derailment that has shut down the system. A derailment in August, another in September. A maintenance problem led to bolts not being tightened properly on a repaired train. That one derailed September 19th at Tremblay. The country's chief medical officer of health warns of a resurgence of COVID-19. Dr. Theresa Tam says progress in the fight has slowed, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Across the country, now the most common new cases are in children under the age of 12. We're still waiting for approval from Health Canada on a vaccine from Pfizer for that age group. StatsCan says the economy added another 31,000 jobs in October. Unemployment rate, 6.7%. That is down 0.2 from September. That marks the fifth consecutive monthly decline in Canada. Now, the national unemployment rate in the United States dropped down to 4.6% after that country created 531,000 jobs. City News Time 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
And this afternoon on Rogers TV, it's Daytime Ottawa with Derick Fage. And Derick's here now. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good. How was your week?
It's a good week.
Good week, yeah.
Yeah.
Who'd you have? You interview anybody famous this week? Or?
Well, Mark Day, news.
Mark Day, okay. All right, Mark Day, okay.
I think, come on.
All right, you can never have enough Cape Bretoners on Rogers Daytime Ottawa, so there you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
We recapped the City of Ottawa draft budget, which I know yourself, you've done plenty of that this week.
Oh, sure,
looking into that, and, some things not surprising, some things disappointing, of course. Talked about travel. People are beginning to travel internationally. a lot of hurdles to go through. So, just breaking down what you need to look for when it comes to vaccines and new testing options, apps you have to download.
Yep.
And, got to consider the cost of some of these tests as well. Some people are canceling their travel plans after booking because you're adding $150 to $300 per person. So if you're a family of 4 or 5, that adds up quickly.
Yeah.
And of course, dream of a lifetime lottery with the deadline coming. Talked about that. And another interesting one, the Ottawa Sports Pages celebrating their 10-year anniversary. It's a publication that really shares stories of, kind of overlooked local amateur sports. So they focus on high school, university, community. So that was interesting. And another colleague of ours, Ryan Lindsay, joining us on the show today. Actually, he's doing the Extra Life Marathon 24-hour gaming stream for CHEO. Which,
it's a gaming marathon.
Yeah, for guys like you and I, we have no understanding of what that is.
I was thinking Ryan Lindsay's doing a marathon? A gaming marathon. Okay, now it all makes sense. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I think you can do board games as well, but he's going to be doing some retro arcade games, and people can donate as he live streams, and he'll be doing that all night for the full 24 hours. He's going to stay up the whole 24 hours.
Yeah, arcade games. I actually remember going to arcades. So that
I loved it. My mom used to take us to Fettuccine's restaurant on Bank Street, which is just across the street from the arcade, and her boyfriend would give my brother and I $10, $5 each.
Oh yeah, okay.
And we go over there, and you have to buy the tokens. You couldn't even get quarters.
Yeah. Right.
Buy the tokens, and we'd spend a couple hours while they ate dessert.
I have the best arcade story of them all. Nobody can top my arcade story. Yeah, I was first year university, Carleton University.
Okay.
I'm living on Metcalfe Street, right across the street from where the Colonnade Pizza is on Metcalfe Street.
Oh yeah,
the original Colonnade Pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be studying for exams, but I'm not studying for exams. Instead, I'll walk over to Bank Street to the Imperial Arcade. There used to be.
I remember, yeah.
Imperial Pizza used to be there. Great pizza.
That's right.
And the Imperial Arcade was there, right near Barrymore's.
Yeah, great.
So I'm in there, and I'm playing. I remember I was playing NBA Jam. Was a hot game at the time.
Oh yeah.
NBA Jam. He's on fire, and you could be.
I remember that.
Yeah, Spud Webb. You could be Spud Webb. That was all the rage at the time.
Well, of course, he's slam dunking at 5'0".
So I'm playing this game while I'm supposed to be studying for exams. And I've told this story on the radio before. Anyway, this woman comes up to me and she says, "Excuse me, sir. Would you like to be in a police lineup?"
What?
And I said, "That's what I said, Derick. What?" And she said, look, I'm a police officer with the Ottawa Police. She shows me her badge, and she says, "We know you didn't do it, but you kind of look close enough to the guy who did it. And we need some people who kind of look like the guy for a police lineup. We'll take you down to the police station. It'll take 2 hours." And I'm trying to think what it paid. It paid like $60 or something like that, right? Yeah.
This is I didn't even realize. I've always wondered how they did that.
Yeah. And I was like
across somebody.
Yeah, I was a first year student, right? So,
that's a lot of beer.
Starving student, like $60 plus I get to be in a police lineup, which is pretty cool. Like
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, Derick, it's just like in television, like on Law and Order or something. Like you're in there and it's like, step forward, please, step back, please, turn to the right, and about 2 hours later, I was out $60, and they dropped me right back off at the arcade.
That is great service. That is great service. What a great story.
Yeah,
I'm glad I brought that up.
It was me, 2 guys that they picked up who were students at Ottawa U. They picked them up in Sandy Hill, and 2 other gentlemen from the Shepherds. Yeah.
Wow.
6 of us. There were 6 of us in the back of a
$60 going back
in the back of a police van, and they took us down into the bowels of the Elgin Street police station to be in a police lineup. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Great story.
Isn't that all? Yeah. Arcades. Yeah, that was a good day at the arcade for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I made $60.
Yeah, you could go back a few times.
So look, let's talk about light rail. It's day 47 without light rail.
My God, what a disaster. Yeah.
This, what do you think of the information in this latest Transportation Safety Board memo? I mean, I'm still, I'm just flabbergasted, a little bit worried about this. And, 1,400 feet. It traveled 1,400 feet and, quote, traversed the rail bridge over Riverside Drive. Derailed already.
I know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if something happened on that bridge?
Oh,
I mean,
you hate
God
to think
forbid.
about the idea,
It's
right?
just, it's baffling that, you didn't torque the bolts well enough, and you didn't mark the torquing of the bolts. I mean, that seems like a pretty basic thing that has to be done. The other thing that stood out to me, Rob, with the report, it noted that the work order for the train was unavailable during the maintenance. So what did they do? They scanned an old work order, and the work was recorded for another car.
Right.
So the screw-ups started from the very beginning of the work order, never mind the work itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have a worse situation than what's happened. And to get people back on light rail is going to be a monumental task, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Absolutely monumental task.
And yet, ridership, has still not recovered. And, I interviewed Mona Fortier shortly after the cabinet shuffle. She's the new president of the Treasury Board, so she's knee deep into this work from home, back to work stuff for the public servants, which is really, so closely tied to ridership for public transit. And, I know she's new to the role, but the previous president of the Treasury Board and the head of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, none of them can give you any kind of time frame about when any public servants that are working from home now will no longer be working from home.
Yeah,
all
and
of that is a great
return.
Yeah, right? It's a great mystery, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that they're basing, the entire transit budget on ridership at 82% of pre-pandemic levels, they are just dreaming in Technicolor, I think.
Absolutely dreaming. Even, regardless of the situation that we have now with the LRT, and actually, quite frankly, when the pandemic hit, it was probably the best thing to happen to the LRT, because you think they would have fixed all of these issues with so many people not using public transit. But no, it actually got worse. So you have a situation where people fall into new routines. People that, were the one-car family, and, the car stayed at home, and off they went, and they used the LRT, and they used public transit to go to work. Well, now they're in a new routine where they get into their nice, cozy cars, especially, the winter's coming again as well, right? There's frost on my windshield this morning. People start up their car. They got the automatic starter maybe, standing inside their house. All of these things, the comfort of using your car is really hard to get away from, because we're addicted to our vehicles, and obviously for good reason, because it's a comfortable environment. You get to put on the music you want to listen to in your car, sit back and relax. Sure, traffic can be bad some days, but
you're not wearing a mask. You're not wearing a mask.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so this 82%, it's not going to happen. And to get ridership back, we're not talking about 6 months here, Rob. I think it's going to take years to get it back to where it was, because, first of all, the trust in the system is probably going to be the biggest thing. People are still going to be reluctant because, the pandemic is still here. How long is it going to last? Do I still have to wear my mask? Some people won't, once this maskless rule comes, some people still will not trust, going out into a public space like public transit without wearing their mask, and they'd rather be in their car, or maybe they've started carpooling with their neighbor.
Yep. And they're going to raise the transit fare again.
That is
right?
It's mind-boggling.
Well, they say they can't. They can't freeze transit fares anymore. They need the money. They need the money.
Well, yeah, but they also need the ridership.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose, okay, let's make it more attractive for people to ride? Maybe we should have cut it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are you going to do? You're going to get, let's cut it by 20%, 10%, so we can get 20% more ridership. You have to choose which way you're going to go. I'm not sure this is the right way.
Okay. The Aaron Rodgers vaccination story. Wow, that's surprising. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was that flaky.
He's a bit quirky.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's a bit quirky. I mean, he's into the Bitcoin. I think he just made a recent announcement in costume about, being, I guess, a face of this Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know how the hell it works. Quite frankly, I'm still confused about that. And he's always been a bit flaky. He's got his own little book club as well. He's a strange bird. So am I necessarily surprised? No. And I think more than that, Rob, it's that you're kind of seeing this group of famous people who aren't anti-vaxxers as far as their voice goes, right? They just don't want to get the vax for all sorts of reasons, right? They're counting on a bunch of factors. I think probably primarily in Aaron Rodgers' case is youth and physical fitness, right? I'm just going to get through this.
Right.
I'm hoping the vaccine works, but I'm not going to take it myself. Herd immunity will be coming, but for them, no. I think he's kind of respectfully declining to get it, and I think there's a lot of entertainers and wealthy people that are doing this, right?
Okay, all right.
Once all these, you sort of, I think it just leads to suspicion. I think there's people out there that.
But haven't they fired NFL coaches who didn't follow the vaccination policy? Like, they fired people in the NFL.
Yes, well, I mean, if it was,
they're not going to fire Aaron Rodgers.
Let's say it's some scrub on the coverage team, right?
Right.
That's causing the problem. He's just there to cover kickoffs and punts. He's probably out of there. But this is a 3-time MVP, right? Accommodations can be made for this.
I guess so.
Right?
Like Evander Kane lied about his vaccination status, and he was suspended for 20 games or something from the National Hockey League. But
Evander Kane had so many other issues. If it was Sidney Crosby, do you think if it was Sidney Crosby, he's suspended for 20 games? I'm not so sure.
Okay, good point. Talk to you next week. Have a great show today.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you later.
Rob.
Yep. Derick Fage from Rogers Television, host of Daytime Ottawa. Randall Denley from the National Post coming up next on City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly, but it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food, so nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm, so supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have from combos and to small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During the time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Author and post-media columnist Randall Denley back with us on the Rob Snow Show to talk about the mini budget yesterday delivered by Peter Bethlenfalvy, the Minister of Finance, ahead of the June 2nd, 2022 provincial election. Good morning, Randall Denley.
Morning, Rob.
You say
you spend that much money and still be called mini, isn't it?
Yes. You say there are two key points to take away from this 175-page document. What are the two key points?
There's a lot of space devoted to trying to persuade the public that they've done a good job. And the rest of the emphasis is we have a great plan for the future. You know, things are getting better. They'll be better next year. We're going to build a lot of stuff. We're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to make things better. It's actually a very positive, upbeat kind of document, which is interesting, the reaction it gets from some people who are not positive and upbeat. Is like, oh, well, yeah, but aren't things still terrible? Yeah, okay.
Right. Okay. So how does the government defend its record on COVID-19?
Yeah, they don't really do it in this particularly, other than to point to the huge amount of money that they spend.
Okay.
Of course, is important, but I mean the other defense of the record is the situation Ontario's in right now. We're in great shape. Numbers are low; they've been low for months. Vaccination numbers are high. I mean, it's been a bumpy road to get here, but I think it's worked out at this point quite well in Ontario. And part of their plan clearly is their hope that by the end of March, we'll be pretty much out of this and they can eliminate all restrictions. And again, that's something that, some people find extremely controversial. I guess they want to have restrictions indefinitely because you never know, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense, Rob.
Okay. So what are the kind of key aspects then of, say, the Ford government's plan for the future being between now and June 2nd?
Yeah, who could possibly see past that day, right?
Yeah.
The things they're talking about are, things that people would normally support. The biggest emphasis they have is they're spending on healthcare broadly, hospitals, mental health, long-term care, more nurses, more home care. They've actually done these things, and I think they're good things. And they've been more aggressive about it than the Liberals have been previously, which is a bit of a surprise in some ways. Traditionally in PC thinking, like, well, health, that's a Liberal issue. Don't get into that one. Well, this government's got its hands firmly on health, and it is the most important issue. So they're talking about the right things there. They're also talking about infrastructure, and I'm sure they weren't disappointed when the headline on their mini budget in the Toronto paper was, Ford to spend more money on highways and GTA.
Yes.
Of course, the Toronto Star thinks that's
bad. That's bad. Yes.
But people who drive cars on roads will probably like it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of infrastructure spending planned, and of course a lot of it's in the GTA. It's still interesting to note, despite all the complaining about highways, Rob, that the amount this government's going to spend on transit is significantly more than twice as much per year as on roads.
Well, I mean, just that Ontario line that they're building is, they say it's $28 billion. We'll see what it is by the time it's all said and done, whatever that is supposed to be. But you think one transit project, $28 billion. $28 billion, right? So that's 3 times as much as this Highway 413 will probably cost. So
yeah, it's funny that governments tend not to get credit for that, particularly this one. They are putting huge and probably debatably large amounts of money into transit projects and not enough into roads, but the perception is just the opposite. And we see it here, too. I mean, the limitation of public transit is that it gets you where government thinks you should go at times that are convenient to government, and if it runs. Well, if it doesn't run, well, you're on your own.
As for another priority, of course, is this theme, and we had Monty McNaughton on this week on the program because it's just been one announcement after another, probably one more to come, dealing with gig workers and some protections for people in the so-called gig economy, but the crescendo this week being $15 an hour. What do you think of this whole approach here, Randall? Doug Ford's in it for the working guy, you know?
Yeah, working for workers, Rob. We're going to hear that phrase quite a lot between now and June the 2nd. I think part of it is good. The skills training stuff is good. It's overdue. They've been at that for quite a while. Their more recent decision to lift the Canadian experience limit for foreign-trained people in a wide variety of trades and professions, also good. They really got negative reviews on the $15 minimum wage, partly for me, but in my case, for different reasons, and particularly in regard to the restaurant and bar industry. That's a 20% wage increase. Say, and we're going to put it in place in January, your slowest time of the year. It's not very smart. It's not very helpful. They weren't consulted. I mean, I raised my eyebrows at that board media conference when he said, look, Minister McNaughton and I, we've been consulting with all these labor leaders, and they told us the number one thing they wanted was a higher minimum wage. So here we are. I mean, what did you think they were going to say?
Sure. And who in a union is making minimum wage? Who in a union is making minimum wage anyway?
Yeah, well, the angle for the unions, it's probably 15,000 people in OPSU, Smokey Thomas's public sector union, will benefit from this. But in Unifor, a lot of grocery workers, for example, have contracts that say, well, you get,
so much above minimum wage,
$3 or whatever the differential is. So minimum wage goes up, you get a raise to keep the differential. So he was quite happy, Jerry Diaz, in that respect, because his members are going to benefit. Okay. But it works its way up all through the system. That's the challenge of it. Even if you don't have a deal that says you get $3 or $5 more than the minimum wage, say you've been, quite happy, my employer's paying me $17, it's a reasonable premium over the minimum wage. Well, some of the minimum wage went up. Well, but I want more, right? Because now I'm not making as much more as the other guy. It pushes everything up. And when you're in a situation where a lot of companies are really struggling and inflation is very high, it didn't seem like the right thing to do to me. And he's not getting much positive reaction to it either, because it's more along the lines of, oh, well, yeah, now where were you 3 years ago? And the point he hasn't made in his own defense is that when he said no to this 3 years ago, we were just coming off a period where Kathleen Wynne had raised the minimum wage for about $11.50 to $14 in a period of just a few months. Yeah. So there was already
plus there was a lot of other measures in the bill that did that 148 that had business just apoplectic. But look, in a minute or less here, this letter that became public this week from higher ups in the Department of Transportation in Toronto to the top people in management here at the City of Ottawa, the fact that it became so public was deliberate, I think. And but was it a deliberate shot at Ottawa, do you think, from the Ford government, or what, Randall?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah? Okay.
It's also a popular stance to take, right?
Yes, it is.
Everybody's mad at the city, so why not be leading the group that's mad at the city? And nothing will come of this.
Okay.
In the end. But she wants and complains a lot about the Ford government, so I guess he got a little back on this one.
All right. Great to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah, you do. Thanks a lot.
Talk next week. That's Randall Denley. Read him in today's National Post. This is City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, November 5th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, -1 degree, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Federal health officials released some new COVID modeling, and it shows we're still bending the curve out of the fourth wave, but the progress is actually slowing. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
There are some positive signs, but also cautious warnings in the latest projections from the Public Health Agency. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Teresa Tam says case counts continue to drop, but there may be some turbulence ahead.
The rate of decline has slowed somewhat. So it's not unexpected that we could see some bumps in the trajectory during the months ahead.
COVID cases are now highest among children under the age of 12. This as most people over the age of 12 are fully vaccinated. There's also still a vaccination gap. People in the 18 to 39 age group have a much lower vaccination rate than other eligible age groups. There's also a clear division in terms of hospitalizations. Unvaccinated Canadians in the 18 to 59 age range are 51 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID-19 than those who have received 2 doses. 55 million eligible people are still not vaccinated. The Prime Minister also getting his flu shot today in order to encourage other Canadians to do the same. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 10:03. It is a potential game changer in the fight against COVID. City News reporter Jamie Pulfer with that story from Pfizer.
A pill that fights the virus after you're infected. A pill that cuts your risk of being hospitalized or dying by almost 90%. This is what Pfizer is saying about this experimental antiviral drug if taken within 3 days of developing symptoms.
This is not to prevent at this stage COVID. This is to treat those that unfortunately got the disease.
Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, who says the pill has the ability to eliminate up to 9 out of 10 hospitalizations. All the data still has to be peer reviewed. Another company, Merck, has a COVID pill 50% effective in preventing hospitalization and death. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
City News Time, 10:04. Now the forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Overall, pretty good conditions. Sun and cloud, the high near 8 degrees, above average, -1 for the low, and then tomorrow milder up to 11 degrees with plenty of sunshine. Sunday also features a fair amount of sunshine and the high near 12. For today, the high 8.
And right now it's -1 degree in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls. A solid showing for Canada's economy. The latest jobs data does come short of expectations. The American economy also gained 531,000 jobs last month. With more on the Canadian numbers, here's City News business editor Chris McCusker.
Canada's labour market continued to heal in October, adding 31,200 jobs. And while that was short of the 41,600 expected, the unemployment rate fell to 6.7% from 6.9% in September. So that's a pandemic-era low, and it's also the fifth month with a decline. The report signals the economic rebound is intact, and it shows companies are finding workers as pandemic restrictions vanish. The bulk of the gains last month were in the pandemic-exposed retail sector, which posted net gains of 72,000. Elsewhere, the gains stalled. At the Business Center, I'm Chris McCusker.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
And it's the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite hour of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics. That's your job. We just do our best to roll with it. Tradition says we usually end up sticking to things that have been in the news this week, but it's not like it's carved in stone. You never really know where the conversation's going to go. But if it ends up being a conversation about the news of the week, hey, don't we have a lot of material to work with, right? We had COP26, big climate change conference, cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector here in Canada. And Mr. Trudeau talking about how his $170 a ton carbon tax is going to make life more affordable for Canadians. Okay. That's a rather unique take on a tax that's going to add 40 cents a liter to the price of a tank of gas, which is kind of already in record-breaking territory. Although there was a little relief this morning, I noticed. If you think $1.43 a liter is a bargain. We had the city budget, draft city budget, which, as we talked about in the last hour, has the transit budget that's built on hopes and dreams about ridership. Police budget, 2.9% increase for the police when some in the community want to defund the police. And a mini budget from the Ford government, the pre-election mini budget and battle lines drawn over highways. Highway 413 is that's going to be an issue. It's not going to come anywhere near Eastern Ontario. It's kind of like a northern to kind of western GTA highway, but it could have a big influence on how this election turns out. Highway 413, because all the municipalities along Highway 413, they've all said we don't want Highway 413, but they're intent on building it, the Ford government. The premier also announced raising the minimum wage $15 an hour. This government froze the wage at $14 an hour shortly after winning the election. The New Democrats responded this week by saying $15 an hour is not enough now. It should be $17.50 an hour. Hey, why don't we make it an even 20? Okay, let's just make it $20 an hour. And what else did we have at Queen's Park this week? Something else. Oh, yes, the announcement on vaccine mandates. Healthcare workers, hospital can have them, and do have them, in fact, and have been putting staff on suspension. But the Ford government's not going down that road. Very divisive topic yesterday. Callers flooded our phone lines, and it was pretty much split right down the middle on that one. So busy one at Queen's Park. And we're going to wrap up our show this morning with some MPPs. Queen's Park Week in Review comes up right after the 11:30 news. News today, the Conservatives, the Federal Conservative Party, Conservative Party of Canada, stuck in the mud and in a mess of its own making. You read this story this morning, David, and you're shaking your head, right?
I don't know what
you're
to
like,
make
what are
of
they
it.
doing, right? Well, I'll tell you. Here's what you should make of it. Okay? Here they go again. They say it's not just about mandatory vaccines for MPs. It's about vaccine mandates for everyone and how it ostracizes some Canadians. But look, this is an issue that played a big role in the outcome of the recent federal election. Vaccine mandates. And it goes a long way to explaining why the Conservatives are still in opposition, why it's still Prime Minister Trudeau. It's in part because the Conservatives just can't seem to get past this issue. They're still bickering about it, and the media loves to write about it. Oh, yes, they do. Have they said anything about Aaron O'Toole other than vaccine mandates? They reported on anything else, maybe the flag-raising stuff? That's about it, right? Nothing on policy, really. To me, it does not cast the leader, Mr. O'Toole, in a good light. And honestly, you know what? Mr. O'Toole had a great 2.5 weeks, the first 2.5 weeks on the campaign trail back in the late summer. But ever since the leaves started to change, it's been just a disaster as far as I'm concerned. And I put the blame on his failure to get a handle on this issue and put it to bed once and for all. He's already been called out by Brian Mulroney, okay? And that's not insignificant since Mr. Mulroney was speaking at a campaign event on Mr. O'Toole's behalf in the final weeks of the election campaign. Mr. Mulroney did that, not Mr. Harper. Clearly to me, it was like O'Toole wanted to pretend for some reason that the Harper years never happened. And he wants to take the party back to its Eastern Canadian red Tory progressive conservative roots. I still can't help but notice Mr. Harper has never tweeted anything about Aaron O'Toole. Okay. I look at what Aaron O'Toole is doing to the party that Harper built and turned into a force that governed pretty well for the better part of a decade, despite some enormous challenges. The biggest one being the global financial crisis. I think history is going to be very kind to Mr. Harper. Mr. Harper hasn't tweeted anything about Mr. O'Toole. Doesn't comment at all on the state of the Conservative Party under his leadership. I can tell you this, though, with some confidence. This caucus monkey business would not be going on if Stephen Harper was in charge. And I'll tell you one more thing. I would take Stephen Harper's results in Ontario in 2011 over what O'Toole's people delivered for Conservatives a decade later. I'd take it any day of the week. 10 years ago, under Stephen Harper, the Conservative Party of Canada won 73 seats in Ontario on its way to a majority government. The Harper team won in places like Barrie and Newmarket and Ajax and Markham and Pickering and Richmond Hill and Don Valley, Etobicoke, Willowdale, Mississauga. Stephen Harper's Conservative Party won every single riding in Brampton. Won in Oakville. Won in places like Kitchener and Cambridge and St. Catharines. There was supposed to be, I thought, some master plan from the O'Toole Conservatives. We're going to win Ontario. We know how to win in the suburbs. Hey, what happened to that? Just look at Ottawa. One little blue dot on the map in Carleton with Poilievre, and everything else is as red as Rudolph's nose. And O'Toole lost seats in Western Canada. And now we have a group of MPs, they say they're forming a mini caucus to talk up and not shut up about mandatory vaccines. It's like some of these people in the conservative movement in this country, you have cement for brains. That you don't appreciate the long-term damage this is doing to the party's brand, and I don't think I'm overstating it. You are completely tearing this party apart. Message to mini caucus, you look like idiots. Stop it already. Mark in Ottawa. Good morning, Mark. You're on City News.
Hey, thanks, Rob. I'd like to talk about all the shameful acts there that Trudeau's performed there since he's gotten in.
All right.
In 2015. Do you remember the day that Kabul was invaded?
Yes.
That's when he announced an election.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the day that the Taliban took over Afghanistan again. Yeah.
Exactly. And he didn't, and now he hasn't done anything. he's just hoping it's all going to go away about these interpreters and stuff. It drives me bloody nuts.
Okay.
You know, we got soldiers, retired soldiers, raising money, and they're asking for $5 million, and they're not going to get it.
Yeah, what is the plan to actually get 40,000 Afghan refugees to Canada?
They've got 2,700 people out. 1,200 of them were Canadians. 1,500 were Afghani interpreters, and there's so many more left over, and it's just a shame. They're good people. Anyway, but that and the way they treat Indigenous people. You know,
in what respect, sir? In what respect specifically?
They're still got they're not paying out the money to the kids.
Well, that's one. Yeah, that's one. Yep.
And they're just going to keep playing this along until hopefully it just goes away again. I guess maybe.
Well, you know, it would be nice. It would be nice to have an effective opposition to point out what I'm pointing out, to point out what you're pointing out. But in the meantime, the Conservative Party is the official opposition, and it seems intent on. It seems the biggest worry for them is whether MPs can be vaccinated or not. It's so ridiculous, sir. This is why, you know, as much as I appreciate your frustration with the Trudeau government and share it to a great extent, this is why Canada deserves an effective opposition. Why do you think Mr. Trudeau's getting a free ride on the stuff that really matters, like the future of the Canadian economy, like his party's environmental agenda, like inflation and the cost of living and new record average prices for houses in Toronto, $1.2 million. If you want to buy a house in the 416 area code, sir, $1.2 million. Meantime, the rest of us mere mortals are having a hard time affording groceries and gas, and you can bet heating bills are the next shoe to drop, and we haven't seen a flake of snow yet. And where's the opposition? Tying itself up in knots because a dozen or so MPs are so either stupid or selfish they won't get vaccinated. Like I said with healthcare workers yesterday, if you don't want to get vaccinated, find another line of work. If you're an MP, you're supposed to be setting an example, for crying out loud. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned. We have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. That time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise, and people. And for us, we have to be careful, you know, especially with the virus going on. Like, did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, you know, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You know, you can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was thought it's gonna be like this. You know, earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, think it might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government, they have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor, but of course, if my store has a back doors or just will be better, it will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy because we have to shut down completely, you know? And this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can go online, let's say t-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit. But when it comes to clothing, like it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer comes, you can give him 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could, I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really want to shop, you have to go to the store because everything will be around you. You want to be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend Doesn't matter how much money, whether 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, or they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people. Like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at certain times, so I'm glad to do that.
Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday free for all. Let's get to it here. Ian in Brockville. Ian.
Good morning.
Morning.
Something that's just not lining up with this light rail. I mean, that's kind of a given, but I'm kind of an avid train enthusiast. My interest kind of more so leans towards the diesel, electric, and steam era, but I'm going to have to do some digging this weekend on this model of train, because what I can tell you as a professional operator who's learned from the last two generations of real good operators is that we have this expression in the industry where all the feel that you get from your keister, you get from your rear end. You feel it in your seat, whether your machine's on an angle, whether it's maybe not running on a rail or something. I'm going to have to do some digging, because it's not lining up. I mean, even on a great big GP-9 CN locomotive, there's more safety involvement on them things than what there must be on this light rail system here. I don't know whether this is more.
Well, I mean, how can I mean, you sound like you'd be more familiar with it with me. A wheel is off the track. Okay, a wheel is off the track, and a piece of equipment has failed and is actually being dragged. And the thing goes into the station, already in this condition, leaves the station, travels 1,400 feet, and the operator is none the wiser. There's no signal, there's no warning, there's nothing until it's blatantly obvious, because it starts to take out the switch heater, and it starts to take out the signal mast and everything else. So
what I can say quickly is that again, being that it transports people cargo, not actual cargo, there may be something that I haven't seen before which controls just how far that wheel can walk itself off the track. But if we simply bring ourselves back to somebody we know with a big pair of mud tires on their big old gas-burning pickup truck, the slower they move those tires, the more vibration they're going to feel inside that machine. The faster, like hitting the railroad track slow versus hitting fast. What boggles my mind beyond being able to fathom is how we can change the speed in which that train is moving, and there's still no feel, maybe it was daytime, we can't see sparks, I don't know, but there should have been something. I got to do some digging this weekend.
All right, you do some digging.
Very last, Rob, Christmas lights. Not seeing too many of them, but for anybody out there who doesn't know, I say this with as polite as I can. We can wake up and do pretty much anything we want any day of the week, and our vets don't ask for much, and I will never claim to speak on behalf of one. But couple real simple things. Grab a poppy, get it on you. If you got money to put in the donation box, they appreciate it. But at the end of the day, just get a poppy on you.
Yeah, good
and
stuff.
If it's not too much to ask, let's just give those guys until the 12th before we start turning on our Christmas lights. That's just let's give them that.
Yep, well said.
Okay, you have a good weekend, Rob.
Yep. Yeah, Remembrance Day next week. I don't do anything like Christmas related or anything until we get Remembrance Day. Yeah, Remembrance Day is big for us here on the Rob Snow Show. To the previous caller about the situation in Afghanistan, there's a front page story in the Globe and Mail about that. Afghan interpreters in peril as safe houses run out of money. Janice Dixon, Mark McKinnon with the bylines reporting from Afghanistan. Which is courageous in and of itself. It says here, I just read a little bit here. In a cramped Kabul safe house filled with Afghans who worked alongside the Canadian military, everyone is awaiting Friday morning with dread. That would be this morning. That's when the funding for a network of such sanctuaries will run out, forcing families out of hiding and into the streets controlled by the Taliban. Aman Lara, A non-governmental organization operating them has been supported by the Veterans Transition Network, another NGO that includes many former soldiers who served in Canada's 10-year military mission in Afghanistan. It runs safe houses all across Kabul and has been providing housing to some 1,700 Afghans who meet Canada's resettlement criteria and do not have a place to stay. Many have sold all their belongings, so returning to their homes is not an option. And those who had money can't access it because the country's banking system has collapsed. It costs $15,000 a day to keep the safe houses open. Donations are not keeping up. And at the same time, it is taking too long to evacuate people. And it's a quite in-depth report. That's just the beginning. And the shame continues. Scott in Brockville, you're on City News. Scott.
Hey, Rob, how's it going today?
It goes, sir. With or without me, it goes.
I am calling to vent this morning.
Go ahead and
about
vent.
this whole red versus blue discussion.
Okay.
My biggest issue here is I'm watching my poor Montreal Canadiens, my red, being 2-6 right now. I don't know what we're going to do with this red. I don't know if we're going to have to go blue, blanc, rouge, or what we're going to have to do, but it is an absolute disaster.
I saw a stat that this is the worst start to any season for the Montreal Canadiens since 1941-1942.
But who's counting, right?
But, well, Habs fans. Somebody in Habs Nation is apparently.
And the other thing I have to vent about, Rob, is I'm a farmer here around Brockville, and the amount of cars that still like to flip the bird to the farmers is beginning to be unacceptable.
Flipping the bird to the farmers? Why are they doing that?
Because people don't like waiting behind farm vehicles.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Yes. Yeah, they're out there. They're putting hay away and whatnot, right, this time of year, so...
I don't know. If you can't sit behind a tractor for a couple minutes, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I think living in rural Ontario might not be for you.
Yeah. Good point, Scott. Good point. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. I'm with you on sympathy for the farmers. Not so much about the Habs, but, sympathy.
That's a cheap shot.
but sympathy for the farmers for sure. Look, we're going to stop a little bit early. I've had my rant, and I feel much better now. Tearing a little bit into Trudeau and O'Toole. Okay. I think I'm pretty much done for the week. So we'll pick it up right after the news. It is the Friday free-for-all, after all, here on the Rob Snow Show. Give me a call. We have a couple of lines available there. You can have your say to end the week. It's 750-1310, 750-1310. After the news, we'll speak again. This is City News.
1310 AM.
It's Friday, November 5th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 2 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. It's a cautious warning from the Chief Medical Officer of Health in the country. Dr. Teresa Tam says while COVID rates are decreasing, it's not as fast as it was. Tam says a majority of cases are now in children under the age of 12. We're awaiting a decision on Health Canada on approval of the Pfizer vaccine for people between the ages of 5 and 12. Progress from Pfizer in the latest COVID fight for those who become sick with the virus, a pill. It's going through tests that is 90% effective in lowering severity of symptoms, cutting the risk of hospitalization, even death. There is also another pill from Merck that is saying it would reduce hospitalization and death by 50%. Latest figures from the province show 44 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa today, 7 more in Eastern Ontario, 4 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. There are 2 additional cases in Renfrew County. Overall in the province, 563 more cases today, along with 4 more deaths. Some positive numbers on the job front today, although below what was expected. Still 31,000 new jobs created in October. That drops the number of unemployed in Canada to 6.7%. In Ottawa, it dropped a half point, now at 5.4. In Gatineau, it's now 3.9%. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Friday free for all, second half of the Talk Back Hour here on the Rob Snow Show, 750-1310. Danielle, you're on City News. Good morning, Danielle.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Nice to talk to you. Just want to say I really enjoy your show.
Well, I enjoy that you enjoy it.
So I just wanted to make a comment. I agree with you as far as the Conservative government. It's shameful how the infighting is going on, and it's allowing the Trudeau government, I don't call them the Liberal government, but the Trudeau government to continue leading our country. What really bothers me is when you look at the MPs who refuse to be vaccinated, and they can continue participating, not in person, mind you, but they can participate during Parliament. However, federal public servants who will not get vaccinated will be on leave without pay. So why aren't the MPs going to have their pay cut as well? And why is this not going to affect their pension? Because they shouldn't be they shouldn't be paid nor contributing anymore towards pensions. That really irritates me.
Yeah, you should be irritated. Yep, absolutely. Yep, you'll get no disagreement from me. I don't know, the whole thing, the way it's gone on for weeks, it's been 6 weeks since the election, right? 6 weeks since the election, and why is this still even in the news? Because it looks like, as time marches on here, Aaron O'Toole's just lost control of his caucus. I mean, we have one news report, and the headlines, basically says, this has nothing to do with Aaron O'Toole's leadership. And then you have another news report that says, this is a direct challenge to Aaron O'Toole's leadership. And I guess both could be right. If the MPs don't give a darn about the opinion of their leader and they just go about doing their own thing. But it is frustrating that the Conservatives are still mired in this, because it's all the media ever writes about or talks about when they say anything about the Conservatives. It's kind of like, look at all those blue dinosaurs over there. Look at all those blue dinosaurs over there. Look what they're doing. If I was Justin Trudeau, I'd be tempted to call a snap election and bury this party once and for all. He'd probably get his majority. He probably would. Barry in Ottawa. Barry, you're on City News. Barry.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Barry.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a personal story to relate to you, like your police lineup story.
Oh, you do?
A little thing about a little bit about Trudeau too.
Yeah.
But anyways, no, my story wasn't involving the police at all. But a friend of mine, Dale Ross, who later played for the 67s.
Okay.
We were both midget-age hockey players, and Philadelphia Flyers had their training camp here in Ottawa at the Civic Center.
Cool.
And one Friday night, the Flyers were going to play the Leafs. So Dale and I talked about it during high school in the afternoon, and we said, well, let's go down early and we'll try and sneak into the rink and we'll just go sit in the washroom on the toilets and wait until the crowd starts coming in and see if we can get in for free. So, we were adventurous teenagers and we liked hockey. And anyways, we went down to the Civic Center and we were walking in on the Bank Street entrance on the west side there. And there was a Voyager Colonial bus there, and this guy was unloading all these big, huge blue hockey bags. So he saw us, and we were both pretty stout lads. We were both over 6 feet tall, and he said, "Are you guys going to get tickets for the game?" So we just couldn't resist it. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, listen," he said, he was the Toronto Maple Leafs trainer, and he said, "You guys help me carry all these bags down to the dressing room." And he says, "I'll give you 2 tickets for the game."
There you go. How's that for a score? Yeah.
We carried the bags all down to the dressing room. He gave us our tickets, and then he said, "Listen, you guys come back at the end of the game and give me a hand," and he says, "I'll take care of you." So, okay. We went back after the end of the game, helped him carry it all back up to the bus, and he gave us $20 each.
Nice.
So we not only got free tickets, but we got...
Did you meet anybody famous?
No, not really.
Not really, eh? No.
I got to notice that the average team size list for the Philadelphia Flyers at the time, and then I figured out the average size of my midget hockey team in Brewer Park, and we were actually had a bigger team in size and weight in midget than the Philadelphia Flyers had in training camp.
Interesting. Okay. That's a great, good story, Bear. Yeah. Trudeau. Yeah. I know. You want to say something about Trudeau. Go ahead.
Earlier in the week, Trudeau they had him on the national news in one of his speeches at the conference there.
Yeah.
And he was going on about how we were getting the world together, like him and all the other world leaders. Mm-hmm. And he was just boasting, like, they're so big and they got their chests puffed out and all this stuff. And, he's going on about how we got the world together for this and we're going to, he was just talking like, oh, we're going to save the world. And he failed to mention that those 3 worst polluters, China, Russia, and India, weren't at the conference.
Yeah. Well, Modi was there, but he's not committed to net zero by 2050. He's committed to net zero by 2070. Now, 2070, all right? 2070, 50 years from now, I'd be 100 years old, okay? I'll be 100 years old, so I'll never know if India ever lived up to its commitment, and Modi will be long gone, and Trudeau won't be far behind, probably, right? So who knows what any of this even means, so... Anyway, all right, Barry.
Also, Rob?
Yeah, quickly, sir.
Also, I had a call within the last week from the Conservative Party wanting to know if I'd make a political contribution. And I said, no, I can't afford it. That's all I told them. But I didn't want to go into details. But like you were mentioning today about them fighting over the vaccination and stuff, I just can't see myself supporting somebody that can't keep their party together or can't, do... a decent job in the election campaign.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Barry. Thank you. Good story there, bud. Good story. Chris, Blackburn Hamlet, calls me every Friday. Chris in Blackburn Hamlet.
That's right. You know my habits now.
I do.
Yeah.
I pay attention.
Yeah, the gentleman that called before the break here, he's talking about his Montreal Canadiens. It reminds me of the story. There's a parallel story in the news. The CEO of Air Canada, who the news found out that he's not bilingual. And as soon as I saw that story, I said, oh, here we go again, the bilingual thing. I mean, I flew Air Canada 6 or 7 months ago, and it's like, you know what, I get on an airplane, I don't really care about who the CEO is or what language they speak or what color they are.
Right.
Like, can you run an airline or not?
Yeah.
And it reminds me like with the guy talking about the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, what really set them off was the fact that he said, and I live in Montreal and I don't need to speak French if I live in Montreal. That's what really set them off, right? So,
well, perhaps he shouldn't have said that. But
no, he shouldn't have said that. I bet you by the end of next week, he's not the CEO of Air Canada anymore. I'll make that prediction.
Which is really a shame because he didn't say anything that's not true. You can live in Montreal and not be bilingual.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a smart thing to say, but, if you're looking at the parallel of hockey, it's like the Montreal Canadiens are not doing well this year. They did well last year, but does it make a difference whether the GM is bilingual or not? I mean, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan or season ticket holder, would you not prefer a Stanley Cup under a GM who was unilingual?
They wouldn't care, I don't think. They wouldn't care.
I don't think you care.
No. Okay. Yeah, Chris, interesting. Good take. Colin in Canada, you're on City News. Good morning.
Good morning. So yesterday you had the president of the Student Federation of Ottawa U on talking about the fact that they don't get to take advantage of the
free transit. Yeah.
Free transit, yeah. That's an issue, but it's a minor one compared to the fact that for the last 2 years, last year, completely online courses, this year, 50% online courses, but no reduction at all in tuition. So, my son's at Ottawa U, paying about $6,000 a year. All last year, didn't get to go to campus, didn't get anything except online stuff at home. This year, more than half his classes are still online. He asked about next semester, now that we've got 90% of people having at least one dose in Ottawa and like 85% both doses.
Yeah.
And the answer back was, well, this is an opportunity for us to move more stuff online. Well, I'm sorry. If we're going to pay this type of tuition,
right?
How do you have to pay for a UPass that he doesn't use and can't use because he can't go to class, even if he wanted to use the UPass? So the UPass is the minor part of it. Like these universities, they got to get these professors back into the classroom and back into work. If they want to wear masks, fine. I get it. But they got to come back to work. This is getting ridiculous.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for having your say this morning here on the Rob Snow Show. We talked about Gen Z. I had a really good show on Wednesday. A very interesting discussion about Gen Z. I want to thank those who called in on that show. And we were asking, do you think Gen Z will be better off or worse off than their parents or their grandparents? Everyone who called made some great points. Gave me a lot to think about. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk about that is because I look at the bill that's been racked up because of the pandemic, and then I think about the bill that was already coming due simply because of demographics and the mass retirement that's coming for the boomers. A lot of them are retired now, but you ain't seen nothing yet. So big bills, right? For health care, big bills for long-term care, and Social Security. Bills that are going to rise exponentially. And I think one of the big challenges of the next generation is going to be the fiscal position of governments coming out of this pandemic. It was bad enough going into the pandemic, but it's substantially worse now. Debt, deficit, balance sheet of the government, higher interest rates, higher inflation, and you couple all that with demographics, what some call the gray tsunami, all of those boomers retiring. Some of the oldest boomers are retired already, millions about to join them. They paid a lot of taxes, and we've promised to take care of them. But who's going to take care of them? The next generation is going to have to foot the bill for that, and now foot the bill for the pandemic on top of that. How's that for generational fairness? They were already going to have to pay a massive bill, and no government has any credible plan to help them cover it. No level of government has a credible plan to deal with the retirement social safety net, health care, and long-term care, given the demographic trends of this country. You can't hide from that reality, okay? And then pandemic, spending floodgates thrown wide open. So what about Gen Z? Are we really just going to pass the buck and kick that can down the road and stick the next generation with this massive bill so we can live the life of Riley right now? Climate change got a lot of news coverage this week. Based on intergenerational fairness. Greta's in the streets today of Glasgow, and 100,000 young people are there demanding intergenerational fairness. That's how they frame a lot of the climate crisis. We can't leave behind a warmer, hotter planet for our kids. They deserve better than that. They deserve a cleaner, greener Canada. We should make sure they inherit a planet that's cleaner and greener than the Canada that we inherited from our parents. Generational fairness, generational fairness, generational fairness. I would ask you, is it fair to the next generation to run up $1 trillion in debt and then stick future generations with that bill? And then tell them, by the way, you also have to pay for all the health care costs of the baby boomers the Gen Xers, the long-term care costs, and their retirement security. Is that fair? Think about the promises that we have to keep to older generations. Like I said, who worked hard and paid a lot of taxes. The bill that's coming due for Gen Z, I don't know how they're going to pay it. It's been a decade since the parliamentary budget officer sounded the alarm about OAS and GIS, Old Age Security and Guaranteed Income Supplement, and what they're going to cost taxpayers. Not the CPP. The CPP is funded with premiums, okay? Through you make contributions to the CPP. That's not how OAS and GIS work. Those programs come out of taxes, out of today's government revenues. And it's a lot of money right now, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Back in 2012, when the PBO looked at this, those two programs combined were costing taxpayers $36 billion a year. $36 billion in 2012. By 2019, the cost had climbed to $53 billion a year, a 47% increase in less than a decade. And the PBO forecasted, using data from the country's chief actuary, that by the year 2036, so 15 years from now, that number is going to be $142 billion a year for OAS and GIS. 167% increase in 15 years is the promise that we have made to the poorest seniors. We have promised not only will we cover your Canada pension plan, but also if you qualify old age security and guaranteed income supplement. You can't stop the march of time. Who's going to pay for that? David is going to pay for that? And the increased cost for health care? And the increased cost for long-term care? And all the costs left over from the pandemic? And try to buy an $800,000 house while he tries to earn an average middle-class income of $57,000 a year. Good luck to you, David, and the rest of your generation. I fear you will not be as well off as your parents. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Borrowed Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s, and then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and, give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment. Because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
All right, the final innings of the Friday free-for-all talkback hour here. Rob Snow Show, David in Ottawa. David.
Yes, good morning, Rob. I think you're right on there about what's happening.
Of course I'm right on.
And where we got to look at is what's called deficit spending. Now, I know that any government spends in a deficit position because they plan down the road and major projects. It's just like taking out a mortgage. You can't buy your house up front, really. But when you start spending on other things and recklessly spending, buying a bigger house than you can afford, taking money out of your, you can't put away money in a retirement fund or an RSP if you're going to keep borrowing it out and taking it out to spend on something else. And that's exactly what reckless, not just deficit spending, but reckless deficit spending has been doing to us.
Okay. But I just look at these numbers, okay? You know what an actuary is, right? Yeah. An actuary?
Yeah.
Well, in Canada, we have a chief actuary. The actuary says, okay, this is how much money you're going to need to pay for all of these obligations, right? CPP, GIS, OAS. Okay, so 10 years ago, for 2 programs, Old Age Security, Guaranteed Income Supplement, David. 10 years ago, it was $36 billion. Okay?
Yeah.
8 years later, it was $53 billion. 15 years from now, it's going to be $142 billion, David. $142 billion to provide Canadian seniors with those 2 programs.
And that's what's called...
So who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody can pay for it. The money just isn't going to be there. And the question is, that's what's called a trend. We didn't need to wait till now to know it was going to be 160-some billion, or it's going to be up by 160%. No. We knew that then because these actuaries could see a trend.
Of course.
And they knew back then what they were going to say now if the trend wasn't broken. Something was done to fix it.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Yep, glad you're well. Rick and Renfrew. Rick, you're on City News, Rick.
Hello, Rob. Good morning.
Morning, Rick.
Yeah, I early in the week you had Professor Lee on this rant about supply management or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess every dairy farmer in Canada should call your show and actually thank you for the support you have always shown.
Well, I'm trying my best, Rick. I'm trying my best. You're getting heck all over the place, Rick. I don't know if you're a dairy farmer yourself, but you're getting heck all over the place. I mean, why is it that, for example, the latest inflation report said bacon was up 20%. Why aren't people howling at the pork farmers? But yet the milk marketing boards say, look at our input costs mean we have to raise prices by 8%, not 20%, okay? 8%. Even though your fuel costs are up 70%, 8% more, and it's all you can do to dodge the bullets.
Well, just watch come February for the actual price increase. We're supposed to get 8%.
Yeah.
See what the prices go up. Traditionally, processors and so on have always tied their price increase to ours, and then who gets blamed for it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they usually piggyback on that. But I agree with a lot of things. So a lot of topics that Professor Lee says and so on. But he's on about the family farm too, or whatever. Back in the early 70s or late 60s when supply management started, the first person that started, you're a family of one. Well, if you keep that business going as a family business, you've sons or daughters or whatever, brothers, whatever, joining the business as generations go on. these family farms, yes, they're mega farms now, but they're also multi-generational farms.
Mm-hmm.
So and he goes on about economy of scale. So what's best to set up 5 small farms or so, or one bigger farm where you can pool your resources or so on?
Yeah, and he also, I'm going to talk to Professor Lees a little more about this, I'm sure, as the weeks go on here on this topic. But we've been arguing about it for 10 years on the radio. So, he says that the dairy industry fails to innovate. Well, that's not the dairy industry that I know. Well, I mean, I haven't been to I'll be honest with you, I haven't been on a dairy farm in about 7 years, but the last one I was on, the cows were sleeping on water beds and robots were milking the cows.
Yeah, and that's becoming more the norm, whether water beds or not. But I mean, there's innovation and technology is you have to. Well, the other thing too, he forgets is what do southern dairy farms in the States pay their? They'll never say they're illegal workers, but what do they pay them?
Of course, yeah.
So what I often analogize when he's had this rant before, that what are we supposed to do? Remember a few years ago when there was all those illegal border crossings and irregular border crossings and nobody did anything about it? So were we supposed to, put people like that in a van, bring them home, make them sleep in our barns and pay them $5 an hour or whatever, and just to be competitive with it? Is that what he wants the future of the dairy farm?
I'll ask him on Tuesday, Rick. Rick, thank you. Thank you, sir.
One quick comment.
Okay, quickly.
Conservative Party, if I could.
Yes.
I've been a supporter. I'm should be retired, but I'm not. But I've been a supporter back from when Trudeau first was elected, the senior and Conservative supporter and so on. And former Finance Minister made a comment about female Conservative MP being a Neanderthal or something or whatever.
That's right, yes.
Well, this kind of stupidity from our party just reinforces that.
Makes them look like Neanderthals, yeah.
Well, like you mean.
Right. Yeah, it makes them look like a party that you can't take seriously, right?
Well, get their act together.
Yeah, get your act. I'm with you, Rick.
It's past being funny.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you since your previous life.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. One more. Last call of the week. It's in Orleans. It's Marie.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Hanging in there. You're the last call of the week. It better be a good one.
Well, I actually called because when you made the pork comment, I'm like, oh, come on, Rob. So I started dialing the phone because 4-year-old kids don't actually require bacon. But they do require dairy.
Okay.
They do require that homo milk. So I think to say that we're not complaining about the pork farmers is a little bit different than complaining about dairy.
Why? What's the difference?
Because you need dairy. Because kids need dairy. Dairy's in everything. Our culture is dairy. Cheese. Everything we bake has got milk in it. You know. And,
right. Okay. So a dairy farmer's feed prices go up. A dairy farmer's energy costs go up. All the prices go up for the dairy farmer. But is the dairy farmer the only business person in all of Canada who's not allowed to pass those prices along to the consumer, Marie? Or is the dairy farmer supposed to swallow all of that?
Well, the problem with getting sympathy for the dairy farmers right now is the fact that they were dumping it a year and a half ago. When all those newspaper articles were coming out with all these dairy trucks dumping milk because restaurants weren't buying it.
They weren't buying it.
It's pretty hard to get people to feel sympathetic when they weren't able to kind of get with the times and figure out a way to... Anyways, when it goes through dairy, as we like to call them, cartels, kind of like the wheat board was, Canadians who know what's going on, we don't like that. We don't like the maple syrup controls. We don't like dairy bean controls. And maybe the farmers do. I don't know how they feel about it. But I know that the feeling is people call them cartels. It's kind of the real word that people use on the street.
You know what? One of the lessons learned from the pandemic is that we need resilient domestic supply chains. And I think over and above everything else, that should apply to our food. And Canadian milk is the best in the world, and it does a body good. Thank a farmer. You know why? Because starvation sucks. The 11 o'clock news is next on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, November 5th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, 2 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Federal health officials have released some new COVID-19 modeling numbers. It shows progress in the fight against the virus, but they're warning of challenges ahead. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The numbers show our country is continuing its 6 weeks of declining case counts, but it's not time to pop the champagne just yet. That decline is slowing a bit, and as we head into the flu season and winter months, there may be spikes in cases and some turbulence ahead. The flu season mixed with COVID could put a new strain on our health system, so officials are urging people to get their flu shots. In fact, as the briefing was happening, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau got his shot at an Ottawa pharmacy. Now, in the state, some experts are predicting the pandemic could be over by January with the pediatric vaccine in circulation, but Dr. Tam is not as confident.
I don't think we're out of the woods. I think we should look probably towards the spring when we will be in a better position.
On the COVID vaccine for kids 5 to 11, Dr. Tam says we're still weeks away from a decision, but if the shot is approved, it would be a big step forward in defeating the virus. COVID cases now highest among children under 12 than any other age group. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now the latest numbers from the province of Ontario, 563 new cases of COVID-19 today, 44 of them in Ottawa, 7 in Eastern Ontario, 4 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. There are 2 new cases today of COVID-19 in Renfrew. City News Time, 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Gilles Taylor.
Overall, pretty good conditions. Sun and cloud, the high near 8 degrees, above average, -1 for the low, and then tomorrow milder up to 11 degrees with plenty of sunshine. Sunday also features a fair amount of sunshine and the high near 12. For today, the high 8.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 2 degrees. The city says it will have an LRT update at 11:30 this morning, expected to be a return to service date for the train following the derailment caused by bolts not tightened properly on a train that derailed on September 19th. The independent safety group called in to examine the entire system will join city representatives in this briefing. StatsCan says the economy added 31,000 jobs in October. It brought the national unemployment rate to a pandemic low.
Unemployment came in at 6.7%. That's down from 6.9% in September to mark the 5th consecutive monthly decline in the rate. Gains were seen across a number of industries, including the hard-hit retail sector, but offset by declines elsewhere, such as accommodation and food services. The Statistics Agency also notes a decline in self-employment, but suggests some of those moved to more permanent and in-demand jobs, like in the professional, scientific, and technical services sector. Statistics Canada also says the ranks of Canada's long-term unemployed, those who have been out of work for 6 months or more, was little changed in October at almost 380,000. Nicole Reese, The Canadian Press.
And in Ottawa, the rate did drop a half point to 5.4% unemployed. In Gatineau, the rate is under 4% now at 3.9. And just getting word from the Ottawa Senators, they have named the 10th captain in the club's recent history. Brady Tkachuk will wear the C for the rest of the season. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
City Councillor and Transit Commissioner Catherine McKenney back on the Rob Snow Show this morning ahead of a technical briefing on light rail, which is happening at 11:30. Good morning, Councillor.
Hi, good morning, Rob.
You know, I swear, Councillor, by the time all is said and done, I think you and I will both know all the little parts that go into making a train.
Yeah.
Bogies and axles and everything else.
Words I never thought I would ever understand or need to. Really.
Yeah. It's really incredible, isn't it? This the last memo from the Transportation Safety Board was shocking enough. This one I find even more so. What do you think?
Absolutely. It would it would almost be comical if it weren't so serious, and the consequences weren't so serious. It took a couple of reads for me to really comprehend that. And, bottom line, we had maintenance being done on trains because we had a derailment, and as a result of that, that maintenance wasn't done. People who were responsible for torquing bolts on a gearbox just simply overlooked it. So it's shocking, actually.
Okay. So at this technical briefing, what will you be listening for? What will you want to know?
It's a tough one because I feel a bit like Groundhog Day. Like I feel like I've been here before, and I've stated what I'm looking for, and we're told things are going to change. We've been in conversation. We have new people, new in the yards, new experts overseeing this, and if this was the first time we'd had a serious issue, I might go in and come out with, feeling like something is being done. But we've been here before. This is ongoing. So I have to be honest. I'm not sure what I will hear today that will give me confidence that this system is going to work.
Yeah, and you're a pretty hardcore public transit user. You were, right? So,
I am.
You'd like to be again someday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that, this is a city where people do take transit and have, we have good ridership, or we have in the past. And so we have an opportunity in this city that's being squandered right now, for sure.
Yeah, that's my point. Because the transit plan, the plan for intensification, the plan for climate change, reducing greenhouse gases, it doesn't really rely on it doesn't really rely on people like you, Councillor McKenney, with all due respect, because you're a diehard public transit user. It relies on people like me. And getting me out of my vehicle and onto public transit. And nothing that has happened in the last 47 days, nothing that has happened in the last 2 years is really driving a lot of confidence, enough so to get me out of my car and onto a train. And that's going to be a big challenge, I think, for the city. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, it doesn't count on me. It doesn't count on people like, I live and work. I can walk to work. I can cycle. I can take the train. I have a car and I use it when I need it. But you're absolutely correct, Rob. To get people in this city to want to take transit, to actually feel like they can, leave their home, they can catch a bus that's coming, frequently, reliably, that's affordable, that it will take them to where they need to go, take them to a train, which is an exceptionally comfortable ride. I have to say I miss it so much when it's not operating, and that is the only way that we're going to get people to leave their cars at home. Yeah. And if you're out on the road today, congestion in the city is terrible. It's difficult to move around. Nobody is winning here. Nobody is benefiting from people not taking transit and not having that ridership, not just back up to where it was, but to even exceed where it was.
I want to know how honest you think the budgeting process is right now, given that you're looking at a draft transit budget that relies on the assumption that transit ridership will be back to 82% sometime next year. Mm-hmm. How honest is that? That's not an honest budget debate about the needs for transit.
I don't see how we could posit as a city increase ridership back up to 82% while we have service cuts while we are increasing our transit fares. And while, again, we have an LRT system that has been down for over a month. All of those factors together tell me that the budget in front of us is not one that you can have a lot of confidence in. It just isn't. People, if you think about it, I do take transit, and as a city councillor, I get a free transit pass. My daughter goes to high school and gets a transit pass, and my wife purchases a transit pass. And we take transit. We take the train often. We travel by bus. But I'm not certain that in today's environment, we would pay $375 a month for transit. People when they think about how they're going to spend their money and their time and move about, there are many factors involved in that. And we have to start thinking very seriously as a city about how do we get more people on transit? How do we pay for that? How do we make it reliable and efficient and safe for people to get around the city? It benefits everyone.
So where does a fare increase fit in for you on that for next year? 2.5%.
I don't believe that we should be increasing fares in January. If you think about the December no charge proposal that we have, that is going to cost $7 million. Not to increase fares would cost just over $5 million. Why would we not keep fares where they are? We can even bring them down a little bit with that $7 million. Nobody has asked me for a free December transit. But people are, becoming more and more disillusioned with increased fares all the time. $125. If you are a family of 4, that's $500 a month. It is too much money. It becomes, it becomes much more economical for people to own a car, and that's not what we want to do. And even if you own a car, we still want you to be able to afford to take transit and want to take transit in the city. It's the only way we're going to be able to grow as a city.
Okay. One more thing. I had your council colleague, Councillor Kavanagh, was on my program yesterday, and she's worried because of the rate of inflation, and that used to be pretty much the benchmark for property tax increases in the city of Ottawa was the rate of inflation. The Ottawa rate of inflation is 5.3%. Nationally, it's 4.4%. Some question about how long it's going to stay that high. But the mayor's target right now for a property tax increase is 3%. So Councillor Kavanagh is worried that there could be service cuts because money will be tight for the city because it's not up to the so-called cost of living increase. This is what Councillor Kavanagh said yesterday.
There's a lot of pressures that are going to be put on the price of construction. We all know the pressures out there, and so it's going to mean that something is going to be tight and cut, and that's going to be really hard. It'll be harder on services that we provide.
You think that it will result in cuts to services, Councillor?
I think it'll be reductions.
Reductions,
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that was yesterday. Mr. Watson says there's not going to be, Mayor Watson says there's not going to be any service cuts or as a result of this budget. Are you worried that there could be cuts, public service cuts at the city?
Absolutely. We already know that transit service reductions are staying in place, so we have that. We have seen over the last few years a reduction in our services, in our offerings. And we just come through a pandemic, so it's very different times in terms of revenue in terms of expense. We saved, in not opening up recreation facilities, but lost revenue, significant revenue in transit, etc. We do have inflationary pressures that are outside of our control, but there's no way that it's actually a 2% increase because 1% goes to filling the infrastructure gap. There's no way that we can meet all of the needs that we met a year ago, 2 years ago, with only 2% property tax increases. It's just not possible.
Okay. I know this technical briefing is coming up. I thank you for joining us in advance of it, Councillor. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, thanks. Yeah. Always nice to chat.
Bye-bye. Councillor McKenney, Transit Commissioner, and she represents Somerset Ward. They represent Somerset Ward. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery is rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service. We're big on that. The cashiers, the deli. You're not. If you ask for something, they're not going to point. It's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there. Okay. If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers, and we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now. Okay. So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world, and we source it through distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to buy, Cuddy turkey breast, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In sports, Steve Warne is back. Sens Nation podcast. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Rob.
All right, the breaking news is, and no surprise, Brady Tkachuk's the new captain of the Ottawa Senators. What do you think?
I think it's the obvious choice. Yeah. I think it's a great choice. I chuckle a little bit at the timing of it because people were saying things like, okay, his opening game, I think it was about San Jose a few weeks back. That would have been the time or whatever. With the team kind of in a little bit of a tailspin here, The timing of it was probably shrewd, a wise decision, as if to say, hey, look over here. This is something really positive that's happening here, to kind of distract from the last 3 games. I think it's a terrific choice across the board, though. He is what they want him, what they want this team to be, the identity of this team, because as DJ Smith has said 100 times, he just drags guys into the battle. It's a great choice.
Yeah. They must have something planned for tomorrow, the 1 o'clock game tomorrow against Tampa. So, and as you said last week, Steve, those are, real family-friendly games, and, maybe a chance to sell a few jerseys or something here. Who knows? But you mentioned the tailspin. I don't know if I should be as worried as I am. I'm kind of worried, though, Steve. I'm a big fan, and I'm looking here. Chicago, all kinds of controversy around that team, deservedly so. They hadn't won a game all season. Ottawa goes in there, they get smoked 5-1. They lose to Chicago 5-1. They lose to Minnesota in overtime. If you score 4 goals, you should win the game, but they didn't. They lost 5-4. And then they got smoked again last night by the Vegas Golden Knights. So they've been outscored 15-6 in their last 3 games. What's wrong with the team?
You have a lot of the same issues as the first month last year, unfortunately. Because if you look at their record after 10 games last year, they were 2-7-1, and now they're 3-6-1. Not a lot better. And on the topic of sameness, they've got really the same mix of exciting young talent, but still learning on the job, and then a bunch of Band-Aid solutions, particularly on the blue line. Last year you had guys like Braden Coburn, Eric Goodbranson. This year they brought in people like Nick Holden and Michael Delzato. So I just feel like there's a lot of the same things that are happening here. Maybe there's some strategy issues with wrong guys playing with the wrong guys, and then you have scenarios of maybe the D-zone coverage they're running. And then you have the same questions lingering about their $6 million a year goalie in Matt Murray. So when you ask me what's wrong with the team, I think it's a lot of the same things as this time last year.
Did you think they'd be better by now? Did you think at this stage, I mean, it's kind of early. They're really not much better than the Habs. Did you think they'd have a better record at this point, though, Steve? I thought they'd be closer to 500, so.
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. I would be lying if I said otherwise. That final month they had last year, you were starting to go, okay, maybe this is a team that's figuring things out, a team that gets it. But it's starting to look like, okay, maybe that last month was kind of fool's gold, if you will, Rob, in that, okay, they're long out of it. They're playing without pressure. Yeah. Everybody else they're taking on is thinking about playoffs and things like that. So maybe, it wasn't as close as it appeared. But, yeah, for sure, I'm a little surprised that things have been the way they have in particularly in these last couple of weeks. Wouldn't write off the season just yet.
No.
I'd probably make some moves, bring up a couple of guys from the minors, keep working at it. But I'm not panicking yet.
Yeah. Boy, it's like you said, Steve, when Pinto went down, they haven't been the same without him, so.
Yeah, I mean, defensive zone coverage, people always say, yeah, it's the guys in the blue line. Well, the center ice position is a huge part of D-zone coverage, filling in the gaps all over the place. And Shane Pinto is absolutely elite at both puck possession and also being where he needs to be in the D-zone coverage. And that's why, out of the gate, DJ Smith is using him on penalty kills. Absolutely, he is a big miss.
2 o'clock tomorrow. I think it's 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Correct.
Ottawa and Tampa. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, yes. Week 9 in the National Football League. Okay, so it's nice to see my Denver Broncos get a win. They're back to 500. They're not going to win this weekend. They're playing Dallas, and the Broncos are going to lose. Your team, the Green Bay Packers, is the most interesting storyline of the weekend and, well, let's face it, of the last few days in the National Football League. I didn't know that the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, of your beloved Green Bay Packers, was such a flake. What is going on with Aaron Rodgers?
Well, he's decided, I guess, somewhere along the way that vaccines are bad. And
holy cow,
it sounds
Steve.
like not only did he not get vaccinated, but it sounds like he lied about it, too. There's actual video of him saying, yeah, I've been immunized. I don't know if he's going to play the card of, yeah, I was immunized against the flu or something like that. I don't know. But leaving aside how dumb I think the decision is, because I don't know anything about vaccines. I just tend to go with what, doctors and scientists say, not some guy on YouTube. Leaving that aside, what surprises me is you have a sport that's all about team and it's all about sacrifice. You have guys like taking pregame painkillers and cortisone shots just to be able to play. And so even if you've got your reservations about the science of vaccines, from a football perspective, you'd think you would buy in. Rodgers knew he could get suspended and miss action for this, and he still said, to heck with it. I'm not taking this thing. So you really have to question. I mean, I'm obviously Aaron Rodgers as a football player, one of my favorite players, has been for years.
Great player. And he's played awesome this year. I mean, the opening game was not good for them, but they've been lights out ever since. So
haven't lost.
Yeah.
No, you have to question his intelligence, his leadership, and you have to ask where the Packers are in all this. Because there was an off-season feud between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
He was late to training camp, came in late, and are they just not tracking who's been vaccinated, or did they give him a pass because they're so worried about his future with the organization? I don't know, but you'd think the team would have intervened at some point and said, hey, you got to take this.
Yeah, and I mean, I was sure that and maybe I'm wrong, but I was sure they fired NFL coaches for not getting on board with vaccinations. And Evander Kane from the National Hockey League. I mean, I know he had all kinds of other problems, but he lied about getting a vaccine. They suspended him for like 20 games, cost him like $1 million worth of salary. So 10 days, I mean, is not much of a sanction for what he did, in my opinion.
Well, I don't even think that's a sanction. That's just a matter of him he's got COVID. Like, he's been diagnosed with COVID. So that's the reason he's out of action. There's been no intervention from the league or from the team, like in an Evander Kane style of way. And there probably should be. I mean, I hate to say it when the Packers are on this Super Bowl jag right now, but, I mean, it's a pretty serious offense.
I think so. So who's the backup for Green Bay?
Well, you recall that Aaron Rodgers has had his nose at a joint for a couple of years now. After in the first round 2 drafts ago, they took Jordan Love in the first round, and so he's going to get his opportunity. He looked good in the preseason, and that's another reason Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if he wants to be the quarterback of this team moving forward. You don't want Jordan Love to necessarily get out there and showcase his stuff, because he could find it might happen to him what happened to Brett Favre when Aaron Rodgers took his job back in the day.
Wow. All right. Enjoy the weekend, Steve. Should be a good one. Yep. Bye-bye. Steve Warne of the Sens Nation podcast. Rob Snow Show back with Queen's Park Weekend Review. Holy cow. Strap yourselves in. It's going to be wild. This is City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Friday, the 5th of November. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 4 degrees. It's 4 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Happening now at Ottawa City Hall. City officials are preparing to give a technical briefing on the plan to get the O train back into service. It comes after yesterday's Transportation Safety Board report that found improperly tightened bolts after the first derailment led to the second derailment in mid-September. The O Trains Confederation line has been out of service ever since. And breaking news from the Ottawa Senators. Brady Tkachuk is the team's new captain. The 22-year-old is the 10th captain in franchise history. Tkachuk will wear the C on the ice for the first time tomorrow afternoon when the Senators host the Tampa Bay Lightning. Canada's chief public health officer says this country is bending the curve on the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, but progress has recently slowed. Some provinces, including Alberta and Saskatchewan, are lagging behind the rest of the country. Nationally, reported cases are now most common in children under the age of 12. A house fire in Constance Bay has injured a firefighter, 3 dogs, and one of the home's occupants. It happened early this morning on Bayview Drive. Flames had spread from a fireplace to a nearby wall and quickly was making its way up toward the roof. Fortunately, all of the injuries were minor. A fire investigator has been called in to determine the cause. City News Time 11:33. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, let's jump right into it. We have a lot of material to work with this week for Queen's Park Week in Review, and the gang's all here. 3 MPPs from the riding of Carleton. Progressive Conservative Goldie Ghamari is with us, actually at Queen's Park right now. Goldie, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Gilles Bisson, New Democrat, Timmins. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
Good to hear from you. And John Fraser is in lovely Alta Vista in Old Ottawa South right now. So, John, Liberal MPP, of course. John, welcome back.
Good morning, Rob.
Okay, some of the highlights from the Fall Economic Statement, which I learned yesterday the staffers call Fez. I never heard that before. The Fez. Okay.
Fez is also a hat.
Fez, okay, all right, good. Mini budget, whatever you want to call it. Infrastructure spending, $2.6 billion. An unspecified amount of money will go to a project called the Bradford Bypass, which I'm not familiar with, and Highway 413, which I'm more familiar with. If you file under health, home care is budgeted $548 million to help patients recover at home, support people with complex health conditions. Long-term care budgets $57 million for more nurse practitioners in long-term care, $72 million over 3 years to hire more inspectors, $22 million on technology to help better share information between hospitals and long-term care. On the staffing side, $342 million to hire more nurses, personal support workers. $12.5 million over 2 years on mental health supports for health workers. And under education, and this is where I want to start. I want to know what's going on here. The government, Goldie Ghamari, your government is being accused by your political opponents and some media outlets of, quote, quietly cutting $500 million from the education budget. How quiet it is, if it's in the media, I don't know, but nevertheless, quietly, is it true or false that the government is cutting public education by $500 million?
Well, Rob, I mean, if you pull up this year's budget that we announced back in March, and if you pull up yesterday's document, the numbers speak for themselves very clearly. So in the budget, we already increased education funding by $1.1 billion. And then yesterday, the Fall Economic Statement confirmed that we spent an additional $230 million on top of the extra $1.1 billion. So again, the numbers speak for themselves. We're already spending even more than we anticipated on education. This is, just another political jab at what we're doing because they don't have anything to complain about. I mean, there's nothing there.
Oh, so they'll always have something to complain about, Goldie. Don't you worry.
You're good, Goldie. Goldie, I give you a medal for that one.
Well, the numbers are there. I mean, we've already spent an extra.
So it's false. It's not true.
Million,
it's not true.
And then there's an additional $230 million. So I don't know where this cut is coming from.
All right. Are you making it up, Gilles? You're making stuff up, Gilles.
We're not making it up. First of all, a lot of what's in the fall economic statement, or the FES, as you referred to, is a re-announcement of what was in the spring budget. So it's not new dollars. When you talk about 500
it's an update. It's just an update.
Yeah, it's an update. But essentially, it's the money that has already been voted on by the legislature for them to do what they got to do. The other thing, any new money that was announced, essentially, it's money that went towards COVID. So when Goldie says there's more money that has been spent in education, she's partly right. Because we've had to do different things in education in order to be able to deal with the pandemic. We've had to update some of the ventilation systems. We've had to do different things, and all of that costs money. But these are essentially COVID investments. They're not investments in education and healthcare per se. In addition to what the government had already done. So, it depends. As they say, liars lie and what was the old saying? Liars lie, figures whatever. There was an old saying, and I can't remember what it is, but it's how you read the numbers. Essentially, additional money for COVID, yes. Some of that goes to health and education, yes, but it's not new money that's going to be long-lasting in the system. It's not going to fix the problems that are there.
Okay. John?
All
right. Okay. All right. The accusation is that the government has quietly cut $500 million from the budget for public education. Is it true or is it false?
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's true.
The numbers are the same as in the budget, and Gilles exactly right about the expenditures. Let's make a demarcation between what we have to spend to make our classrooms safer and what we need to spend on educating our children. And we're saying exactly the same thing as we said at budget time, just because they're repeating the numbers. And actually, if you look at this document, there's really nothing new. And it actually reads more like an election platform.
Oh, go away.
No, it does. No, 100%. And actually, if you look at it, here's a choice. We're choosing...
A budget update before an election looks like an election budget. Go away, John.
We're choosing highways over education. We're choosing highways over the environment. Just take a look at the piece on environment and climate change. And I like to hear, I'd argue that you probably could have got a grade 8 social studies class, if they still call it that, to write that section. And it would have been better because they actually care about it more. There's nothing in there about environment and climate change. I mean, they're talking about electric cars. Well, they tore out all the
I don't want to get too off track. Or who knows where we'll end up here. Okay. Look, the fact is, from where I sit, and you can argue with me, this government is a big spending government. Okay, if you're a fiscal conservative, which some of us thought Doug Ford was. Some of us have questioned, we did before the pandemic anyway, is he a fiscal conservative or not? This is the biggest spending government in Ontario's history. This government has spent more on education and healthcare than any other government in history, including your government, Gilles, Bob Ray's government, when you were in government, and certainly yours, John Fraser, both Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen.
First of all,
and by the way, the line you were looking for was figures don't lie, but liars figure. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. Mark Twain.
I'm never good.
Mark Twain. Mark Twain. The internet tells us.
Yeah, I like Mark Twain. The death of his death was overly exaggerated in the obituaries I heard. Yeah. But anyways, no. Every government can claim that it spent more than any other government in history. Why? Because there's inflationary costs in healthcare, education, and everything else that we provide as services.
Right.
So yes, it's true. The Bob Ray government spent more than anybody else. The Kathleen Wynne government spent more than anybody else, and so did the Doug Ford. The difference with the Doug Ford government is two things. One is part of this is COVID expenditures, and governments have to do what has to be done during COVID. So, that's fair. But what the government is also doing is it's trying to protect itself on its flank in order to try to build up the support it needs going into the next election. And it is spending money on things like Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass and a few other things at the expense of other things like passing lanes on Highway 11, the finishing the 4-laning on Highway 69. Those things were not mentioned whatsoever inside this fall economic statement, which means to say they're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So,
All right, Goldie, do you want in here, Goldie? Go ahead, Goldie.
Oh, I mean, I know Gilles isn't too familiar with what's going on in Ottawa, but I'm kind of surprised that, John, you would think that investing in highways and infrastructure is bad, especially given the current fiasco with the Ottawa LRT. And, not everyone can rely on public transit, John. Roads and highways are important. People in my riding of Carleton, they can't take public transportation. They can't take the bus. They have to rely on driving because the LRT and Ottawa OC Transpo doesn't go out that far to Carleton. There's hardly any service out there. So I don't understand why you're against highways, why you're against helping people deal with, congestion. And that's something that Del Duca also said. He doesn't want to see congestion in the GTA go away, and that's very strange to me, especially with what's going on right now with the public transit.
Well, I guess John. Maybe the mayor's draft budget came out yesterday. The mayor of Ottawa is going to spend 56% more on roads in the mayor's budget.
Gilles was right. You got to fix them. And what he's saying is there's not enough money in this budget to fix them, and they're spending money on a highway in the GTA. 413. It'll be $10 billion by the time they're done, and $8 billion over 10 years.
Right, but they're also spending, John, they're also spending $28 billion on one transit project in Toronto. One transit project, John, $28 billion. And that's the estimate now. Who knows what it's going to cost by the time it's done, John? $28 billion for one transit project, for one city.
You need that transit project in Toronto. You don't need a highway that saves people 30 seconds. And the reason they're building that highway is there's a whole bunch of people who have land along that highway whose value of that land will go up.
Right.
That's why they're building it. Now, they should be putting...
What do you mean by that? Are you saying they're lining the pockets of their buddies or something?
Just look at where it's going. Just go and take a look at it.
All right. Okay. Look.
You know what?
Okay.
Can I say one thing to Goldie?
Shameful for you to say that. Okay, bringing up that. The bypass had nothing to do with anyone. This was all planned out by transit officials. This was done by bureaucrats.
And then, Goldie, why did you reroute the highway away from one of your MPP's golf courses, his dad's golf course?
So, that was done by Ministry Transportation.
Oh, come on.
Don't interrupt me when I'm speaking, Gilles. If you want,
one at a time. Come on, hurry up.
This was done to reduce environmental impact on the Holland Marsh and to preserve a significant archaeological site. Stan Cho made it very clear that when he became the Associate Minister of Transportation, he got screened from that. It was reported with the Ethics and Integrity Commissioner.
You're going to put me in an early grade.
You know what? I find it shameful that you guys are trying to muddy.
All right. Order. There's too much heckling. Okay, look, we'll have to stop, for goodness sakes, you three. Holy cow, like ferrets in a cage. We'll be back after what are we doing here? 11:45. Holy cow, it's almost quitting time. It can't come soon enough with the three of you. We'll be right back on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying, and then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. But we've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting, and anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not, but more so now because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff, and again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
All right, I know this topic is going to take us back to the good old days of Kumbaya. I know we're all going to rally around this one, okay? We're doing our Queen's Park Week in Review. Progressive Conservative Goldie Ghamari is with us. She's
Hello.
at Queen's Park today. Bisson, I guess you're in Timmins, are you, Gilles? In Timmins, yeah. Any snow up there yet?
We had a bit the other day.
Had a bit, okay. All right. A little chilly today here in the capital region. I'm sure, John, you would agree. A little chilly today, but not bad. No snow yet in Ottawa. So,
but this call warmed it up today.
The fight for 15 is over. The minimum wage will increase New Year's Day to $15 an hour. Of course, the government rightly froze the minimum wage shortly after taking office because Kathleen Wynne's move to raise it was too much too soon for many businesses, more than 30% in just 13 months. Tough to take. So, kumbaya, everyone. Everyone's good with this decision, I assume. John, John. Well, let's start with John. It was John's government that had planned to move it to 15 too fast. So, here we are. We're here. We got there eventually, John.
I'm happy for those families, but I was there, in the summer of 2018. When the premier cut the raise to the minimum wage, his
it was frozen. It wasn't cut. It was frozen. It was frozen
as he stuck it to workers and families on minimum wage, and now he's come forward with the $15 3 years later, and it's like he set a fire, he let it burn, ran over and put it out, and now he wants us to pin a medal on his chest. And the reality is, a whole bunch of families had to make really tough decisions about rent, maybe about heating, kids' clothes, foods, prescriptions, and it didn't need to happen because Doug Ford didn't save one plug nickel in the Ontario budget by doing that. And he didn't help workers. And now he wants to pretend he's a friend of workers. And he's not, because he still hasn't made paid sick days permanent. He took them away. He still hasn't made equal pay for equal work. He's kind of half built up what he tore down in Bill 148. And now he wants us to give him credit and congratulate him for it. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, that 148 needed to go. That was a terrible piece of legislation.
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
good
awful,
legislation for workers.
Awful. No, way over the top, filled with red tape. You buried small business owners in red tape with that piece of legislation. Far overreaching. Yes. The only thing that was good for was creating jobs for inspectors to go and hassle small business owners. That's the only thing that legislation was good for.
Workers. Gave them protections. Equal pay for equal work. Come on.
All right. Gilles Bisson. Go ahead, Gilles Bisson. Gilles Bisson, kumbaya, Gilles. Over $15 an hour?
No, I think John is right. Is that he essentially created the fire, and now he's gone out and put out the fire, and now he says, "Look at me, how great I am." He's the guy who decided 3 years ago to not increase the salaries to minimum wage to $15. As a result, if it had been $15 3 years ago, the minimum wage would be more than $15 today. It'd be whatever inflation takes it to, right? As far as setting the rate. So he's not the little guy's champion. The other thing is that most people realize is that, I don't know about you guys, but where I live in Timmins, there's hardly anybody paying $15 an hour anymore. Most of them are $16 to $18 an hour because they can't find workers. It's hard to fill those jobs. So it's not costing business a heck of a lot because most of them are already paying over minimum wage. And what he should have done is adjusted the $15 to actually the inflation, and then maybe you're in the ballpark. But this is a little bit too late. As far as him trying to pretend that he's a working man's buddy.
Among the provinces, I bet you, as of January, we're doing a fact check on. I bet you, as of January, Ontario will probably have the highest minimum wage in the country, and it's still not good enough.
Middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack? Okay, BC $15.20 an hour. Okay. Goldie, Ghamari. Goldie.
Those darn NDP governments.
Goldie. I don't know what it's going to take to talk some sense into these two today, but I'm not doing a very good job. So.
It's good for you, Rob.
It's hard to talk sense when people don't really make any sense. I mean, this announcement that the Premier made, Jerry Diaz from Unifor Canada and Smokey Thomas from OXU were standing beside Premier Ford when he made this announcement, and they were praising our government on what we're doing. And I think this has made the NDP and the Liberals very uncomfortable because the NDP rely on unions to attack.
They can't stand that Doug Ford's working for workers. That's what it is.
Exactly. And, it's interesting because up until just a few days ago, if you went to the NDP website, they had a petition on their website that had been there forever. And it was, sign this petition now to demand a $15 minimum wage increase. So the NDP and Andrea Horwath were, focusing on this. And
good thing we were doing that. We forced you into that position.
And then as soon as Premier Ford made his announcement, that petition was taken down. You can't find it on their website anymore. And now
of course not. You're at $15. Why would we have it on the website? Yeah, but it should have been more than 15 with inflation. But that's a whole other story.
Why wouldn't you say that then on your petition? This is just another example of you guys trying to find
You did at the end, but you should have done 3 years ago. Goldie?
Come on, Gilles. Let me finish speaking.
Okay.
I didn't interrupt you.
Okay.
This is
you're right.
another example of what you guys, you guys just have to find something to complain about. And John, for you to say that we're doing this right before the election is not fair at all, because we have done a lot to support low-income people in Ontario. We actually introduced the provincial income tax relief for people who are making, I believe it's under 30,000, and we have the lift tax credit. We put in a tax credit for seniors to renovate their homes. What did you guys do in 15 years, John? You did absolutely nothing.
So Goldie.
All right, John. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John.
So Goldie, I don't care really what Jerry Diaz or Smokey Thomas has to say. What I think we care about are what
I'm pretty sure you do.
Wage. Look, you know what? That's fine. They can say whatever they like. But let me finish.
All right. Sorry, John.
So it's going to cost those workers about $6,700. And yes, you did the lift credit, but they still came out behind when you did that. So you're putting pressure on the people who earn the least. And what this pandemic has shown, and the Premier likes to call our grocery store clerks and cashiers and people working in pharmacies and people cooking and cleaning, that there are heroes. So what the Premier did These people make our what he did was he made the lives harder of the people who make our lives easier every day.
How did he make it harder?
How he did that? By not allowing the minimum wage.
All right.
And even if the argument is, if he wanted to slow it down, that's fine. He didn't slow it down. He stopped it. He cut it off.
Yeah,
he just kicked him to the curb. That's what he did. Now he needs them, so he's out there. Yep. Go ahead.
Your leader was calling the premier basically a thief in the legislature. Do you really think that's appropriate language? Andrea Horvath was saying Doug Ford stole $6,000 from the working poor. Is that really appropriate language to say that?
That was the effect of not increasing the minimum wage. If you were a minimum wage worker at the change of government when Mr. Ford came in, you lost about $6,000 as a result of what he's done, and you can interpret that in any language that you want. But also remember the Ford government who's saying we're the government for the working class and we're going to do all.
And for the little guy.
We still have a 1% freeze on nurses, on education workers, on all of those heroes that we talk about.
Yep.
And you hear the ads on the radio. So the reality is the conservatives are conservatives in sheep's clothing. They've gone to $15, which is good. I'm not saying that's bad. I support the $15 increase in minimum wage. I think it was about time they made the decision. But they did it 3 years later, and it's cost people money as a result.
Gotta go. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Stay safe. Goldie Ghamari, Progressive Conservative, Gilles Bisson, New Democrat, John Fraser, Liberal, Rob Snow. Fair and balanced. And back on Monday on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and...
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more